my phone's gonna die, my phone's gonna die the whole day, and it never died. But all day, it's gonna die. Nobody even called you while we were there. Not one person called you, John. It was for a long time. Thank God you're here. Our new besties. Our new besties blaming on me for Eric's sickness, stating it's my cookie. And then told Joseph about the terrible marriage.
You were there.
So you smell good. Did you just put perfume on?
She's doing the 8th grade thing.
I smell good at like 9 a.m. It's just my arm.
I'd like to call to order the South San Antonio ISD Special Call Meeting. The time is 6 p.m. The date is November 1st, 2017. Ms. Martinez, if we could have roll call, please.
Mrs. Angelino Seguin,
Present.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr.,
Here.
Mrs. Linda Longoria, Mrs. Leticia Guerra,
Here.
Mrs. Connie Prado,
Present.
Mrs. Helen Madlo Prather, here, Mrs. Elda Flores.
Present. Okay. We are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas Pledge, the prayer, and then to call to action. But before we begin, Dr. Saavedra will be out today. In his place would be Delinda Castro and J.C. Zamora. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Now please bow your heads. Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance tonight. Amen. Now the call to action. All students will enjoy successful education experiences to empower them to make decisions and enrich their lives in the future they create. Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay, the board will now go into closed session. The board will return to open session and take appropriate action, if any, on items discussed in closed session. No action will be taken in closed session. Further, board members are reminded that all items discussed in closed session must remain confidential so as to avoid liability to the district. The board will consider and discuss the following items. Pursuant to Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.0821. Discussion concerning personnel matters pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, and the time is 6:02 p.m. Thank you. Calling back the meeting to open session. The time is 6:33 p.m. Discussion and possible actions. Number 1, to adopt Lone Star governance. So I put this item on the agenda only because when we had the workshop last meeting, we did the workshop, we came to an agreement with the totals on the
Ms. Martinez? There she is.
And so I just need to hear a motion and a second to adopt the evaluation we did at the last meeting. We failed to do that in that meeting, so we're doing it today.
I move to approve.
I second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mrs. Guerra. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Right. The next one is amendment to progress measures for Goal 1. Again, I put this on the agenda because in our workshop, we were not able to get a few more points because our Goal 1 had 4 progress measures instead of the 3. And so if you look at the agenda item summary, in the first box, it listed the 4 and the recommendation, which is item 1.2 is an and. So it includes the enrollment in dual credit courses will increase by 10% in 2018, and industry certifications will increase by 10% in 2018. So that was the only change, is to make it from 4 to 3, but everything is still in there from the progress measures. So do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, so a motion has been made by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mrs. Matla Prather. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. So now we're on presentation and reports. Okay, so number 1, reporting on beginning of year reading assessment data. Mrs. Gosper?
Thank you, Ms. Osteguin. I'm going to ask Ms. Lorraine De Leon, our Executive Director for Curriculum Instruction, and Ms. Amy Shields, our Director of Teaching and Learning, to guide us through this presentation. As the board remembers, just to recall for the community members that are here, that we have adopted very high expectations for our reading goals, and we are to have progress measures and report publicly on these progress measures. So we're reporting out this month on our beginning of year reading assessments. So, Ms. De Leon?
Good evening, board members. We are using iStation as the assessment tool to conduct our testing for the school year. iStation is an online reading assessment. And we'll do this assessment 3 times a year, and our students will also be tested monthly. So iStation, the indicators of progress, better known as ISIP, as I stated, is an online reading assessment. It does assess, and it does something similar to a doctor. As a doctor, if someone is not well, a doctor will run tests and then prescribe the treatment or prescribe medication. ISIP is similar to that. It'll diagnose the students in what area, with a targeted area of reading, and then prescribe customized individual lessons that are online. Students are assessed in 7 areas, depending on their grade levels. Students in K through 2 are assessed in phonemic awareness, letter knowledge, alphabetic decoding, while students in dark grade through 8 are tested on vocabulary, spelling, comprehension, and text fluency. Today is the first of the month, so today our students were progress monitored, so students across the district were being tested. And each month, as the months progress, the test will increase in difficulty. Shortly, you're going to see some graphs and some data. The data is going to be listed in color bands. Upon completion of the assessment, students will be tiered to determine the level of support needed. So on the graphs, you'll see a green. Green means that students are performing on grade level. You'll also see a yellow band. Those are students who are performing moderately below grade level, but are in need of intervention. Lastly, you'll see the red band. The red band is what we call tier 3. Those are students who are performing significantly below. So these are our students that are most at risk and need the most intensive intervention. Ms. Amy Shields, our Director of Teaching and Learning, now will go over the data.
So this graph represents all of our data for grades K through 8. And as Ms. De Leon said, we have bands of green, yellow, and red, although there it does look kind of blue. So for instance, there are some things that we should probably note about the data. So kindergarten, note that there are 43% of students in Tier 1, which means they are on grade level. So I would say that our pre-K program is doing an excellent job of preparing students for kindergarten to have that percentage on Tier 1 at this time. So then you might look at first grade and think, well, they're a little bit lower. Well, that is probably to be expected in first grade because that's when they're learning to read. And so they are tested on the 3 areas that Ms. De Leon pointed out, but they're also tested in the other areas as well. And so they're pulling as they're learning, they're pulling all those things together. So we have a focus on the interventions in iStation, as well as we're training all of our K through 2 teachers in guided reading this year. So between those 2 things, we would definitely expect more students to move into Tier 1 as the year progresses. In 5th grade, you probably noticed that we have 55% of our students in Tier 1, which is a large percentage, so that looks really good at this time. And so when you look at maybe Tier 3 in grades 3 through 5, we have somewhere between 20 and 30% of our students in Tier 3. So we are ensuring that our reading teachers on the elementary campuses are focusing on serving those students so that we can move them out of Tier 3 into Tier 2 or Tier 1. In grades 6 through 8, this is the first time that we've used iStation in grades 6 through 8. So our results are showing that we definitely have some work to do with students in Tier 3. So we are making sure that students are getting their time on the online program, and also that we are ensuring that the teachers are accessing the face-to-face intervention lessons that they can do with small groups of students based on the data from the assessment. So the next slide shows our, yes ma'am? Yes ma'am?
Okay, so I'm going to ask the board to ask questions as the slides are up, and forgive me because I know y'all weren't given this information. So Ms. Castro, when we are getting reports on any of our goals, that we have backup so that we can review it.
Right, we sent it, I believe, last night to the entire board.
I didn't get this one. Oh, shit, I didn't get this one.
Yeah, I sent it to the entire.
I got the one for the next presentation.
It was with 2 documents. It was with the,
Both were on the,
both were on the
I got that one. I didn't get this
programs
one.
of choice and this one.
but you're right, and you're right, I think still a day ahead is still not enough. What was happening, just to let y'all know, is we wanted to make sure data is accurate before we send it out. And there were still some schools, some students that hadn't been assessed yet. So I wanted to make sure that we had some time for teachers to get in the assessment. In addition, there was, last week, I believe we had a little glitch on the iStation side. They had that fixed, so we had a couple of things that we had to iron out. And again, 6th, 7th, and 8th have never done this before, so I didn't want to send out a report and then send something new out at the board meeting. So that's why, and so I do apologize for sending it out yesterday. It should have been out earlier, and I think going forward now, we'll have everything up to date.
Okay,
And
good.
we couldn't have gotten this at the next meeting instead of
Yes.
Or was it supposed to be, it was a deadline and they had to report on this today?
It was expected, according to our calendar, it needed to be reported on in November. And I believe we asked the first meeting to be about our goals.
So maybe in reviewing this, if we're meeting some deadlines as to getting the report, because if we're using this next year, then maybe we can do a revision on that calendar.
Yes.
Maybe move it a month,
Yes.
so that we're not,
And-
we have more time to review.
Right, absolutely, and I think hopefully but some things also, it's something that we may want to discuss too, if there's something beyond our control, you know, could we move it to the next board meeting or something like that, might be something that we could consider.
Yes, and so the question I had is, so I know you said that 6th through 8th grade, this is the first time we're implementing it. Is this the first time we're implementing iStation, period?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so my concern or question is, so the 6th graders this year used it last year.
Yes,
Why the significant drop in the tier 1 though, is my concern. Because if they were used to this last year, is it a significant drop because not everybody has gotten tested? Or what is that?
Well, I think one thing I would want to do is go back and look at what their end of the year data look like as fifth graders and compare it to the beginning of the year now. I mean, I'm going to be honest, it also depends on how much the student attends to the test as they're taking it, how much they're willing to, you know, take the test, just like any test that they take. So I think that's a really good question, and like I said, I would want to compare that data to see what the comparison was of end of the year for these fifth graders versus beginning as sixth graders.
And you make a valid point, so maybe that data could be in here as well, so that we can have some type of, you know, the fifth grade last year, they're sixth grade now, this is the beginning of the year, and where they're feathering at that point.
Also, I would say that the test in middle school is different than it is in elementary, like the complexity of the test is different, so that could also be the reason that tier 1 looks different for those students in sixth grade versus what it was in fifth grade.
Mrs. Flores?
And I'm zeroing in on tier 3, because more than half of the students are not performing well. And again, am I hearing you say that perhaps these students did not take this test seriously? And that's what you attribute this high percentage of students that are performing seriously below grade level?
Well, I think one of the things that, you know, that we talked about when we were in training recently with the iStation, you know, trainers that came to the district was it's certainly a good practice to encourage all students, like on the announcements and everything, you know, this is Show What You Know Week, so that students, you know, can know that this helps us to serve them, you know, so that we're not spending time teaching them things that they already know, but then we can also target what they don't know to help them, you know, increase their reading scores.
So was iStation, how long was iStation implemented in the district?
K through 5,
About 3 years.
3 years.
So then this year's 8th graders have gone through iStation as 5th graders. So they know how to use the software. These 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So it's not something that is new to them. It's just, I'm trying to wrap my head around, over half of our students are not being successful here, so I want to find out how can we provide help to these students? What attributes to over half of our students needing, seriously a lot of help?
And if I can answer that, Ms. Flores, so you're absolutely right, and it's been a concern. Remember, before, we didn't even have this data, so we would only see the STAR, if you will, or common assessments, where we're seeing 5th graders coming up high, and then all of a sudden, why is our 6th grade dropping, and why is 7th grade? And so one of the things across the district that we've had is our reading scores in 6th, 7th, and 8th, which is why when we had the opportunity, we expanded iStation all the way up to middle school. Because there's been an intervention every single year, and now, for whatever reason, in 6th grade, we're thinking, oh, in 5th grade they did so well, and they still need additional support and targeted support. I do think too that, like what Ms. Shields mentioned, the depth and complexity is a lot more rigorous. It's even more rigorous from even 2nd grade into 3rd grade. first grade into second. I've even seen at schools of how they track it, where you see kinder 1, 2 up in the green, and then all of a sudden third grade, those 22 students that were in green are now in red. Well, what happened from second grade to third grade? And so looking at the exam and the questions itself, but I do want to remind that it is the beginning of the year. It's good that we're seeing this now, not waiting to, not waiting to the end. I am confident in the leadership at our middle schools, and I know our principals are all over it. I was at a learning walk this morning, or yesterday morning at one of our middle schools, looking at a 6th grade reading and writing teacher. You saw kids with their Chromebooks, getting after it, and it comes back down to, good first instruction. That tier 1 is about teaching it well the first time, not waiting for the intervention, teaching it at a high level the first time. So I agree that it is alarming, but it is the beginning of the year, and we're hoping that that red starts going down. And so hopefully our expectation when we do this middle school, when we do the middle of the year data representation, that these bands, those red bands, decrease.
And that's the hope, because I believe it says you will assess them 3 times a year.
Yes, ma'am, and I can assure you that with the progress monitoring component, these students will be tested monthly, so we can closely track month-to-month progress as well as the 3 times a year. So we will absolutely, the Division of Academics is going to be tracking the data to measure those gains. So this is something that is on our radar monthly.
And the pattern shows, right away you can see that, and what Ms. Costa was saying is so true. If the mastery level is not there to begin with, that's solid, that's your building block. Anything else above that is, yeah, they're meeting expectation, but they're not that solid by meeting expectation. Once they get to the next grade level and the rigor becomes more, that's when they drop. So that's why we have to, our goal is that the mastery level has to increase for that reason, so the rigor must be there. Okay.
Are there any other, Mr. Ybarra?
So a couple of comments and then a couple of questions. This is one of the reasons that we instituted goals like this one, because when you focus on something, then the awareness is there, right, and you can react. So it's beginning of the year. I know it's alarming. I would say board members give it some time, but it does concern me just to know what measures are we taking when we see this kind of data to not be managing in the crisis mode the rest of the year. So my question would be, you said that the iStation got expanded to middle schools when?
This
When did
year.
that happen?
This
This is
year.
the first year that it
This
went
is
to
the first
middle
year.
schools. So how are the teachers responding to iStation in middle schools? What's y'all's, kind of feeling on how the teachers like iStation, don't like iStation? Are they buying into that concept?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we're working through right now is, with the tier 1, 2, and 3, the kids are on the program different amounts of time based on their tier. And so it's, when are we going to ensure not only that they're on iStation getting their individualized interventions, but then when can the teacher pull small groups of students and do those face-to-face interventions based on the data? So yes, they are, it's new, it's something new, so like anything new, we're learning and working through when we can do, when those things can take place.
And I do believe that almost, and I know the middle school principals are here tonight, they have a built-in intervention in their schedule. Some have it during lunch, some have it at the end of the day to address these small, if it needs to be. And then they also offer it for activities if they have met, or if exceeded. So they have built something within the school day, not waiting for after school or tutoring or Saturday to address the interventions and prescribe really what's needed, as Ms. DeLeon said, as a doctor does, prescribe what medicine is needed.
Right, and those are all causes of the problem. I mean, those are all kind of prescriptions for the problem. But are the teachers buying into using iStation? Do they like that resource? Do you feel like iStation is going to work in middle school as an effective measure?
Should we have, Mr. Garanza, do you want to speak?
Not really, but thank you, sir. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Good question, sir. remember the first time, this is going back when I was inside the classroom, we've had iStation for such a long time. When our first, third, fourth, and fifth grade first took the test, the scores were also low. But it took the time for the elementary teachers to also get in the habit of motivating the student to take that test. So now we're having to train the middle school teachers the same process. Go back, motivate them, get them interested. Because some of my 7th and 8th grade students were saying, oh, iStation again? Here it comes back. They don't like iStation, the students don't. But once they start seeing the value, once they start seeing how it can improve their scores and their reading, then they start buying into it. So it's just going to be, more time to build up, the motivation. They can see the results. Then they'll start buying into it, and we'll see those scores go up.
And I also think consistency, when they realize it's not going away, we're
Right.
being consistent, you know what I mean? They'll also support.
And the teachers, they're new. They're new. They've never seen this. Elementary school teachers have years buying into the iStation, where our middle school teachers are now starting to see, oh, this is a new program. They're still learning the kinks of how to, manage it, look at the data, get the students motivated into it. So eventually the teachers will also see that value. So right now it's just a learning process across the board.
Okay, so one last thing while you're up there. What resources do you think that we need to get either the teachers or the students on track with iStation? Is there something we're lacking?
Well, one of the difference too is in elementary, the elementary school teachers take them into a computer lab. So now they have this computer lab, where in middle school they have Chromebooks inside the classroom. And so now you're inside the same classroom on a Chromebook, and some of the earbuds, some of the headphones, they may be lacking. So we're telling the kids, bring in your earbuds. We're trying to purchase some more for them. And if they don't have it, so now they have to put the volume up a little bit higher, and it could be a distraction for them. So now we're trying to see how can we do that where they can have earbuds or headphones, because once you go into elementary school, they have the headphones, and it's nice and quiet, they can focus.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank
That's all the questions I have.
Another slide of data.
Okay, this is our ISEP Espanol, so for our bilingual students in kindergarten through 5th grade. So you can see from the data that we have some pretty, high percentages of students in Tier 1. And then you can see in 4th and 5th grade, less students are taking the Spanish version. And so that's because our students have already transitioned to English. So know that our goal always with our bilingual students is to have them proficient in their first language before we transition them to their second language, because then they'll be able to transfer those skills. So, questions about this slide? Board members?
I have one question. On all our graphs, we have percentages, which is fine, that's how we do graphs. But are the students identified by the teachers of who's in the blue, and who's in the green, or the yellow, or the red? Are these students identified that who needs help and who doesn't?
Yes, ma'am. You can run reports by campus, you can run reports by grade level, you can run reports by teachers. So teachers can see individual student reports, or a principal can see a campus report or a grade level report. But yes, we can identify exactly the students. Thank you. So this was a study that was done not by iStation, but I think it is very interesting because it gave us cut scores for an overall score. If students are attaining an overall score in iStation, the study says that if they can attain this score, then they have the ability with 95% confidence to meet the approaches level or the meets level or the master's level. So I think this is interesting because I think we'll see the data. We'll always have this across the year. But as you can see right now, this is our percentage of students, according to the study, who right now have the ability to meet approaches.
So if I could interject really quick, Mrs. Shields. So we had this study when we got this information, I believe, yesterday, so that's why it wasn't put into the presentation. But either way, I still think it's important for us to report out to show the alignment of iStation and the results of iStation and how it's predicted for our students to go to do and perform on STAR. So I wanted to share this with the board, even though, and I apologize again for it not going out, but we had just gotten this study yesterday and we thought it was still important to share out in a public forum to see where, according to our beginning of the year data, where our students are falling.
Ms. Costa, could we have
Yes,
this later on?
absolutely. Mhm.
So one significant thing I think this data shows is that if we have 65% of our students in fifth grade that have the ability to meet approaches, then we need to really focus with those students on moving them to meets and master's levels.
Absolutely.
So the question I have is, this data has been given at the administration level. How is this data disseminated to the teachers in these grade levels?
Well, we just got it, so it will be. And the principals as well, so that they can, because we received it for 3rd through 8th grade, and it gives a score for approaches level, needs level, and master's level. So we will pass this information on to them so that as they're looking at their data, they can kind of see where their kids are falling as the months progress, because they look at their data monthly. So they can kind of see, do I have more kids that are moving towards approaches or needs or masters?
And along with that, that's where a lot of their data walls are reflective, where I know every month they come back where they get their iStation and they start looking at students. How many, do we have more kids in green? Why did a student go from green to yellow? Why? What happened? And so that's where they start doing their 9-week planning, their common assessments based on their iStation data.
So I have another question based on that, because I did do a learning walk. And so in that, there were a few individuals who did not have the data wall. So I'm not sure if they're tracking it somewhere else. And if so, what are we doing as administration or principals to make sure that, I mean, I know, for instance, I know there are some teachers who are probably fighting it, who don't want to do it, or whatever the reason, because I did a learning walk and it wasn't there. But for whatever the reason, whether they feel they're capable or they know it, they have it somewhere else, they don't want to put it on their wall, that's fine. But how is it that as the principal in that campus, how are they making sure that that instructor or teacher is data-driven as well? You know, that they know what students are in the green and the yellow and red and what interventions that they're doing. I mean, is there indicators or is there marks that we can,
Yes,
you know, that we're,
it's part of
I don't want these kids.
Right, no, absolutely, and that's a great question. Actually, this is an expectation in all of their evaluations. In T-tests, they must be data-driven, and it's very specific on how, in order for teachers to be proficient, and in order for principals to be proficient, how they show that they are, how they are learning leading data meetings, how teachers are participating in data meetings. So even when any of my staff that are on campus, when we are going to see a principal, let's say I'm observing a PLC, I have documentation where I need to see when is your next data meeting, and I need to observe to see how are you discussing data, how are teachers responding, how is their instruction changing. So it's part of their evaluation.
Okay, and so in that evaluation, how often is it done? What's the dialogue on that?
It can be both. It can be both. We have a very specific format when they have their data meetings. An expectation is a minimum of every 3 weeks.
Okay.
When they do their common assessments and they come back. I was at an elementary school today to help them out with they got their data back and we're wanting some support on action steps for the next 3 weeks. So we do follow where they identify their top scoring student expectations, their lowest scoring student expectations, why were these scoring high, why were these scoring low, backwards mapping it to when you delivered the instruction. Was there something in your instruction that showed that all students chose the same wrong answer? Well, if they all chose the same wrong answer, that's an instructional issue, not a cognitive issue. So yes, we actually been doing this for about 3 years now, where they are leading data meetings, and to the point where some of our schools don't even need the principal there. The teachers are now like, the grade level leads they've been in such a habit of, okay, we just got it back, we have to start analyzing, what do we need to adjust? So that is happening at least a minimum of every 3 weeks. And again, if it's not, then it is documented in the evaluation, both principals and teachers.
Mrs. Flores?
Does this information include special comps as well? I know you gave us the bilingual, the Spanish part, but how about special education? So yes, our special education students do take this. We can extract them at a future meeting if you'd like, but all students are taking this assessment. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I'll follow up more on the way the data is studied and looked at the campus level and broken up. Does the district still send progress reports home?
Yes, ma'am.
How often?
Every 3 weeks.
How much of this information gets to the parent level? Where the parent will know, oh, my child is, the parent might be thinking that their child is reading at grade level and it's not. That child is probably struggling and is needing intervention. So how much of this information gets to the parents?
So especially with our tier 3 students, those are when we have to have those one-on-one parent meetings, especially when a student, and that should be happening now, when we know now, the earlier the better, because we have to have the parent support for them to see. In fact, today we had a home visit at one of the elementaries that was a tier 3 student, and when they did the home visit, when the principal did the home visit, the child wasn't sick. They just didn't feel like coming. And she shared with him, do you understand that he's, the reading level, this every day he doesn't come, it's not, you know what I mean, it's hurting. And so so they are having those conversations. If they can't find the parent, the principal's going to the house.
And I would like to add, with regard to special education students and dyslexic, this is now just another good source of data that we can monitor all populations. Yes, ma'am. Great. Okay. The next thing I'd like to say, so at this time, we have a multifaceted plan to improve reading. As you heard earlier, our main focus is maintain focus on good first instruction. Second is to have fidelity to this intervention schedule. It is new, and so we're asking campus principals, teachers, that we develop those schedules and then we maintain fidelity to that. Because our tier 1 students need to receive at minimum 30 minutes of intervention weekly. And these are the students who are on level, but again, providing them the supplemental interventions just helps them. For tier 2 students, they require a minimum of 60 minutes intervention, while our tier 3 students receive 90 minutes of intervention. And I will tell you that our tier 3 students, we have another plan for them because we have intensified our efforts to support our tier 3 students before they go to middle school. We want to close that gap. So if I may share with you now, and one thing I do want to just add is, as Madam Prater mentioned, the nice thing about iStation is it provides us customized lessons online, but teachers can be very specific and download a lesson that they can conduct in a live small group session that's customized for that student. So we can group students that have the similar needs and conduct, in addition, a face-to-face intervention.
Oh, wait, before we go back. Mr. Ibarra?
I have one question on the slide. Who's providing this intervention? When you say that kids need intervention, who's doing it?
So our tier 2, and actually that's the next slide.
Oh.
So our reading teachers at the elementary, we've asked now, we're trying to be very strategic, and so our reading teachers now, Ms. Shields and Ms. Bravo with the reading ELAR facilitator, are working closely with the reading teachers so that we can provide intensive support to our students that are at 3rd through 5th grade for those tier 3 students. So, but I want to assure you that our primary focus for the lower grades is to now implement guided reading lessons. That's a new initiative to the district this year. So now there's heightened efforts by the primary teachers to do their regular block, and within that block to provide small group instruction with leveled readers. So that's where we're double dosing the students, like we're giving a double dose of medication during the regular reading block. And as you see there, data is being reviewed monthly by the principal, the instructional coach, and teachers. Again, I want to emphasize and stress that during our PLCs, This is, again, another data point that helps us build the lessons that we need to develop. And again, I do want to also emphasize that campus and district administration is monitoring this data. Again, it's fresh for us, it's vertically aligned, so we're able to track it now K through 8.
So a follow-up to that was just, I know that we're trying to provide some campuses autonomy to those principals to kind of, to kind of evaluate their own campus and figure out their needs and address them, as they feel fit. But oversight has to be there. And so that's why my question was, who implements it, and if we're lacking resources in that area as well, especially on the elementary campuses. And a resource could be anything, I mean, a reading specialist, a book, whatever that resource may be. Are we lacking resources, in your opinion, to get us to where we need to be to reach our goals?
In my opinion, right now, I think we're doing well that we just now, have this for K-8 and as well as the.
But see, I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett, but I would say we could never have enough resources, to be honest with you. I don't
In
think.
a perfect world, yeah, we
Right,
could do all the money needed.
Right, but I don't know if we could ever have enough, I honestly, I don't know if we could ever have enough resources when it comes to, getting, moving students and getting them, at the accelerated levels that we need. One thing that cannot be replaced is a high-quality teacher. And that's, in my opinion, that's the #1 resource. That is the best resource. And ensuring that we have a high-quality teacher in every single classroom that loves kids, that reviews their data, that, responds to intervention, I think that is the #1 resource. So I feel like I'd like to have as many, more high-quality teachers. I don't feel like we could ever have enough. But as far as the resources that we have and that we're on track, I'm pretty confident. We give access, the principals have access to their budgets, to their 211. Very rarely, as long as it's aligned to their CIP, to their action plan, but they have the monies. In fact, I believe JC is actually even working right now to even kind of let go even other things that we can control previously. He's actually giving them access to that as well. So, so principals can have everything at the tip of their fingers if they see all of a sudden, oh gosh, we need to go this way, we need this resource. They have the supply money to purchase it.
So they will be able to adjust if needed, where it leaves. Okay.
And even in years past, let's say something has come up and they're like, hey, there's a Region 20, I don't have, I'll work with Mr. Abundis, we'll find the money. If they need something, if you need to take it out of mine, something, we will find the money.
Okay.
So I have a follow-up question. If you go back to the previous slide. So the 30, 60, and 90 minutes, is that a daily intervention? Is that a monthly, weekly?
That is a weekly, and that's the minimum recommendation.
Minimum.
Okay, that was my concern. And so for the 6th through the 8th grade, how are we making sure, because the dialogue that I've been receiving is trying to get our teachers, that they're new to this, trying to get them acclimated to this new software that we can track and know the student and their reading performance and be able to give them interventions customized to them. And so how proficient are we, is the administration staff, making sure that our teachers are first and foremost knowledgeable and understanding of this new software? I know it's new, but time is of the essence, and so, delayed.
Right. Unfortunately, the wonderful thing is the instructional coaches. The instructional coaches have been trained. They are going in, they are a trainer of trainers. So they are training, they're present, those are our boots in the field, boots on the ground. They're helping, sustain those best practices. And so now, do we have to make adjustments to our PLC, agendas? this definitely is something that will be on the instructional coaches as well as principals' agendas in the near PLCs. the near
Okay, and
future.
so then my next question is, and I want you to be honest, whoever wants to answer this, were we surprised by any of the data?
I was not. You may have, but I was not. Just because I know middle school, I'm sorry, I know we've been having issues in middle school reading. I mean, we have for years and years and years, and it's, you know, we go very high up to 5th grade, and then all of a sudden 6th grade. And so this wasn't very shocking for me, but that's me.
Did a light bulb go on though, as far as we have a tool now that
Yes.
we can use, that can
That is
project
a
our
silver lining.
students?
And that's the thing is like what Mr. Ivada shared earlier, you know, awareness creates responsibility. And now that, and not just, it's one thing when you have it on a campus data wall, it's also another thing when you have it publicly at a board meeting where you're presenting to the community. I mean, that's another, awareness creates responsibility, where it's not just, you know, at that campus, it is, you know, we're sharing with our community where our reading scores are.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or concerns, board members? Okay,
I have.
Mrs. Flores?
Because of the middle school, which is not surprising to me either, how much of the daily interruptions through discipline take away instruction at the middle school?
Ask them, our middle school principals, who wants to take a shot at that one? Come on, thank you, Joseph.
Good evening again.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem, ma'am. And that's a good question. Discipline is always going to be an issue at any campus. But still, the teachers know that when it comes down to the actually the direct teach or the student teaching, that moment is very crucial, that moment. So the students now know when the teacher's up there teaching or the students are in their groups, there should be no interruption. Usually the interruption is on the way to the class, usually at the end of the class. That's when they start getting off task. And when those moments happen, they will either call us up, we get them back in line, we tell them to calm down, put them back inside the classroom, and hopefully they're back focused again. So then, if we're able to do that, then the instruction still continues. But it's always something we have to look at.
And I understand that because I know. I just would hope that, you know, discipline and classroom management is being handled in a way where a child is not being sent out because they're misbehaving and sitting at someone's office for that whole period, and then that instruction is not there for that child. And, you know, that's the only thing I'm hoping, that there's more awareness about that.
And I know at our campus, we also have Chromebooks inside. If they happen to go to ISS for that class period, we also have Chromebooks inside there so they can continue with the iStation, which has been helpful, you know, also good to them.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
So
Ivana?
the follow-up to that would be, is PBIS helping with that specific issue right there?
Yes, it always helps. And the teachers know the procedures in place. You know, if they need help right away, we have steps in place to make sure that there's someone there to talk to the student while the teacher's still able to conduct the instruction, so that way it doesn't take away from the rest of the classroom. So we have things in place, and then hopefully the student's able to put down their plan, their discipline and behavior management plan, back into action, to get them back into the classroom, which is our number one priority. If not, then we have hopefully another alternative learning center for that student.
Thank you.
So the next one is middle schools redesign, update on the academies of choice. Mrs. Castro.
Yes, so myself and Mrs. Bills, our Director of STEM, will be walking you through this presentation. I also have the 3 middle school principals here in case there are other further questions. So just to remind us that we shared out in August our first original timeline for our middle school academies. We also did a report out in September, and so now we're trying to give y'all an update again of where we're at. So I don't have the clicker, so. So just kind of taking us back to where the whole idea of academies and magnets came from. It came from our strategic design implementation, our strategy to develop a strong support system offering opportunities across the curriculum to create an innovative school experience, teaching students to not only value their experience, but also teaching students to value their education and motivate them to achieve excellence. And as a result of that, from 2015 and 2016, when we met with the community again, we were asking them, what's your expected result from this strategy? And that was establish and sustain middle schools as magnet schools for the 2018-19 school year. And so then things really kind of fell into place when we had our Lone Star governance. And we believe this, our academies very much aligns to our board goal number 1, where we're trying to look at the increase of graduates who qualify for community college, university, military, or industry certification. And then as a result of the Lone Star governance, we were selected as a recipient of the System of Great Schools. These 3 domains, these dimensions of Domain 2 are very tightly aligned to our academies of choice. Develop and expand great schooling options, helping families understand and navigate their schools and programs of choice, and building an ecosystem of effective school support and talent providers. As you know, the commissioner's goal is to have more students being taught in high-performing schools every year, year after year, and our academies is our response to that. So just to remind the board, in August, I believe it was August 17th, is when we had 3rd through 5th grade parents took a paper survey at each of the elementary campuses during their open house. In addition, we had middle school students we had a paper survey, we had an online survey, and we had middle school students take that as well. I believe we had 1,247 response. As a result of that academy interest and feedback survey, we then formed our campus and district design teams. In September, based on that survey and feedback, themes were chosen by the design teams from that community survey. And then in September, October, and November is when we began to do site visits for these choice programs. So our health science, both high school and middle school, observed the following districts. Grand Prairie ISD, they visited Dubisky Career Center. In Mansfield, they visited Von Barber Career Tech Center. Where on this Friday, I believe, it's Fox Tech High School and Thomas Edison High School that they're going to be conducting site visits. For our middle school STEM Academy, our team visited Judson ISD, School of Science and Technology Discovery, Sue Crouch Intermediate STEM Academy, which is in Crowley ISD, Summer Creek Middle School STEM Academy, which is also in Crowley, and then Grand Prairie Collegiate Institute, which is a T-STEM Academy, which is also in Grand Prairie ISD. For fine arts, the Fine Arts Design team visited the Fort Worth Academy of Fine Arts, the Grand Prairie Fine Arts Academy in Grand Prairie ISD. In November, we are working with Austin ISD to observe Lamar Middle School Fine Arts Academy and McCallum High School Fine Arts Academy. Apparently, they're right next door to each other. So for the Middle School Health Science Academy, this is a choice academy. It's a career-themed program focused on connecting students to high-demand jobs in the field of health professions. Students will be learning a combination of both progress-based and personalized learning. These are possible course offerings, so I stress possible. As later in the presentation, I'll be sharing with you the 9 community meetings that we have set at every elementary school. Once these community meetings are done, this is when we're going to be garnering feedback regarding course offerings. For the middle school academy, one thing that staff is recommending is students getting a high school freshman credit at the end of their 8th grade year. But we don't want to make that decision without meeting with parents, getting their impact, getting their input of, does this sound palatable to you? Do you feel like your students could, rise to this high expectation? So these course offerings, again, I want to stress, are just possible course offerings. So for the STEM Academy, again, it's a focus on science, technology, engineering, and math. Again, connecting students to high-demand jobs, and then again, learning project-based and personalized learning. And so possible STEM course selections. We're going to wait to hear back from our community and parents to see and discuss the course sequence on what their take is and whether this will, this needs as well. Our Fine Arts Academy that will be at Shepherd Middle School is hoping to, is a program inspiring artistically talented students and a lifelong passion for learning, empowering them to achieve academic and artistic excellence. Students will learn through a comprehensive program in dance, music, theater, and visual arts, and a combination of project-based and personalized learning. So again, possible school offerings. If you notice in each of the middle school academies, we are trying to get some high school credit in that middle school year. Health science is the one that we're really hoping to get an entire 9th grade credit when they are in 8th grade, in hopes that they can get more practicum time as they continue along with the Health Science Academy. But we are offering or encouraging, high school opportunities at the middle school. And again, this is one of our focal points of discussion when we have our community meetings. And the update on the High School Health Science Academy, focusing on high quality, rigorous instruction, engaging real world education experiences and internships. Students will gain knowledge and skills necessary to build a foundation of successful careers in health science, and will have opportunity to complete coursework prior to graduation, which will prepare them for careers in licensed vocational nursing, or LVN, pharmacy technician, and emergency medical technician. These are possible course offerings for our pharmacy tech. And so as you notice, we start dual credit in that 11th grade year. These are possible course offerings for emergency medical technician. And these are possible LVN course selections. This was not sent in your earlier PowerPoint because we are still working with, it is going to be very dependent on our higher education partner on what course sequence that are going to align to this. So this is very general. So high school recruitment efforts have already begun. October 16th through the 20th, all 8th graders attended information session not only on the Health Science Academy, but also all CTE pathways. Next Monday, there's a Pathways to Profession showcase at the high school from 6 to 7:30 p.m., specifically inviting all 8th grade students and parents to come and look at all of the course offerings, the CTE offerings that are high school has to offer. I invite everyone to come. It was a really amazing experience to see what our students are doing at the high school in regards to CTE. And then November 13th through January 15th, and this is still very flexible. This is not set in stone, but we were looking at the application window for the Health Science Academy for 8th grade students. And so before I go on to the 5th grade student survey, were there any questions on what I presented so far? Yes.
Board members, Mrs. Flores?
On the course offering sequence, how was it determined? Did you go specifically to higher ed, TA? I'm not sure. How did y'all determine
On
that?
which course offerings for the health science?
Yeah, for all middle schools.
For all the middle school?
Middle schools and.
It was both. It was both looking at TA and also what other, when we went on our site visits, what they were offering. A lot of them strongly encouraged to get as much high school and the middle school level. Some more than others. Health science tend to be more rigorous towards that way than maybe fine arts. But that was as a result of the site visits we shared and when we were, collaborating with other districts.
And then my next question to that is specifically at the middle schools. Will our middle school teachers be prepared to teach these pre-AP courses?
That's a great question. So that's something that we're in discussion with. And again, we needed, in my opinion, that's something that we've been in discussion with, and I really want a lot of community feedback and support on that because I don't want to force teachers to do anything. I want them to want, and especially when it comes to an academy, you have to want and be interested in that fine art, interested in engineering and math. So that's something that, you know, I think that we need to discuss not only as staff, but also discuss with the board and also discuss with community is how do we select these teachers? What is involved when we select, because it is going to be a high expectation. There's going to be a lot of we're wanting project-based learning, we're wanting AVID. We also looked at restorative discipline practices, and restorative discipline is what we learned from when we saw our other site visits, because as you stated about classroom management, they can't afford to miss a day of instruction, so they have a lot of the sites we visited were very much encouraging restorative discipline practices where kids stay in the classroom as much as possible. And so, in fact, when we went to go see, I believe, Fort Worth Fine Arts Academy, a science class, and this was a fine arts academy, science class had just had a circle because a student was upset, and they had a protocol of where they share and they do, you know what I mean? We walked in and they had just finished the circle. And that's been their way to keep kids in class as opposed to them acting out and being, so that being said, that's going to be a lot of professional development. And so those teachers need, you know, I don't want to force that. That might be some days away from their summer. So that needs to be discussed and really thought through. And really meeting with teachers to see, you know, I'd like for it to be interest first, you know, if I have my way, you know, and having them, you know, choose. But beyond that is where we're going to have to decide, do we want to, you know, open it up, you know, or do we want to keep it for our own teachers first? That's just another thing. That's going to have to be a decision that we come to. Go ahead.
Because my concern would be that if the community is for it, they want these academies in these areas, and the student wanted, but the teachers aren't sure, then how can we not offer it because the teachers aren't sure? Would we have to go out and recruit those teachers? Because it's unfair to our community and our students not to offer it if they want it.
Correct. And if I could speak a little bit about the Early College Academy, I believe when it first came, there was a lot of pushback at the high school. Teachers didn't want it. In fact, I believe Dr. Hernandez said he had a hard time finding teachers who would teach the early college kids. And now 3 years into it, now teachers are coming to him, hey, what do I have to do to be an early college teacher? So I think, you know, change takes a minute. And so we're hoping that, you know, the more informed we are, you know, the better it'll be.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a,
I have some questions. First of all, I apologize, the slides don't have numbers, so it's going to have to be by title. I have a question on slide, it's number 7, but it's the middle school fine arts. I noticed that on that one, it looks like the districts that were visited were out-of-town districts. Does not San Antonio have any districts here locally that their middle schools have fine art programs? None of them?
Not at the middle school level.
not, we have at the high school, the majority at the high school, but not at the middle school level.
So we'll be the first to have a fine arts at the middle school.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other is the Health Science Academy for the high school. Can you tell me, because that is already there. We started that years ago. It just has not been as productive as what we wanted it to be. It had a lot of glitches when we first started, although it was supposed to be a state of the art. And it is, it can be still. So what I want to know is what's going to be different this time around from what's being offered now, or what was offered before.
I'll ask Ms. Balzadue to come speak to that.
Good evening. So, Ms. Farrow, you're right. We have a lot of potential in the Health Science Academy from what it's been the past 5 or 6 years. But in doing some research in all of the certification programs that have been offered, we've been offering EMT, the Emergency Medical Technician, Pharmacy Technician, and CNA, Certified Nursing Aide. We've only had 3 students get certified in the past 6 years. So that's definitely not where we need to be. A lot of it is students who just drop out of the program, students who haven't completed the coherent sequence of courses throughout the 4 years, students who haven't completed their hours of observation, students who just haven't signed up to take the certification exam, students who have signed up and didn't show up to take the test. So just really a lack of tracking the students, and so that's where I would come in and really make sure that the students have the support, are being tracked throughout the process to keep them on track basically, and know what they need to do to keep on sequence is really the most important thing.
Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the program was supposed to be, you had to actually, I guess Ms. Geller could probably, if I'm saying something wrong, let me know, because your daughter was involved in that. It was the best of the best. You had to really qualify to be in this program. And somewhere along the line, it's now turned into anybody who's going to Health Science Academy. And they're using it for other things besides Health Science Academy. Has that changed already? Did you correct that?
So the way it's been run the past couple of years is students who are in health science right now are taking the classes as electives. And so that's where we get into the problem of they're not completing a coherent sequence, which is why they're not getting anywhere as far as certification. So that is definitely first step where we're going to correct it there. We have a coherent sequence now of the courses that they need to follow. And so that'll definitely be what we're going to fix. Obviously, we're going to have to finish servicing the students that are already in the courses. So we're going to try to certify as many of them as possible.
And if I can also add to that too, what also helps, especially with like our early college students, we have an adult, Ms. Sochi Martinez, that tracks students, that keeps them on track. If they're falling low in a dual credit course, she gets with them, she calls parents, she calls, so they don't drop out. We never really had that adult advocate. Or at least since I've been here, we haven't had that adult advocate, and so I think that also helps is having, staff dedicated to make sure that kids, stick with the program. It might be tough, but let's keep going with it. Let me provide you support so you don't drop out and stick with it.
Okay. The other question I have actually is also for the Health Science Academy. It says on here under the recruitment efforts, I'd like to know how many 8th graders have attended the recruitment. So how many 8th graders have we gone to reach out to that are interested in the High School Health Science Academy?
So I actually talked to all of them. I spent 3 days at all of the middle schools. We combined the Exploring Careers, thank you, and the Tech Apps classes. So I spoke to 60 kids at a time. I was there all day at Dwight, Zamora, and Shepherd. In about each class period, there was probably about 20 who said that they were possibly interested in applying. From that, I received emails and phone calls from parents who had more questions. I gave them brochures, we went over, I showed them videos. A lot of kids who really had no idea what an EMT was, what an LVN was, what a pharmacy technician was. So we just went really in depth to give them an idea of what each career looked like. I gave them information as far as what the employment rate looked like and how it's expected to grow, what the how much money, right, what the salary will look like, and so that really piqued a lot of their interest. And so at the end of those 3 days, they seemed to be very interested. But at the same time, some of them expressed that just the health science wasn't something they were interested in. So I also took that opportunity just to educate them on the other pathways that we offer.
And what are we doing to involve the parents in this decision making? Because as we know, 8th graders, 9th graders, even up to seniors, they want something for now, they start into a process and then they'll change their mind.
Right.
So I think the best person that would know if this is something that my child wants is the parent. I mean, they see them every day, they know their interests, they know if this is really something they want or they're just going to try it for the first year. So how much involvement are the parents being involved in the decision-making process? Because even for the 5th graders, I know 5th graders took surveys, but those are still babies, and so how much emphasis can you put on a 5th grader survey? I think the parent needs to be involved, especially at that level as well.
Definitely, which is why we're doing the CTE Pathway Showcase next Monday. And so after that, I've already reached out to all of the 8th grade Algebra 1 and science teachers. So once the parents have been able to go to the showcase and they have a better idea of what South San has to offer, the algebra teachers and the science teachers already know which of their students kind of have the most interest in the health science or might have the most potential in that area, and they're preparing a list for me, and then I'm going to reach out to each of those parents individually.
I think that's important. I think a one-to-one, I know it takes a lot of time, but I think that's the best thing to do, is to reach out to the parent. And of course, my concern is the little 5th graders, because they are still little. And I'm curious, when they did the survey, where did you go in with the survey? Was it done in the classroom? Was it done in this computer lab? Who helped them with the survey?
I can answer that. So do we want to go to the 5th grade survey results? Not yet?
No, but can you tell me how did they help them?
That's the next
That's the
segment.
next part, is the 5th grade survey.
Okay, all right. And then the other one is, in some of the charts, maybe we haven't gotten there yet, where you showed the percentages on how many chose STEM, how many chose.
Yeah, that'll be in the next
Okay,
segment.
I have a question on that too.
Okay. Ms. Guerra,
Okay,
Ms. Balzadua?
Wait, you're not done. Yes, ma'am.
about the recruiting, the first time around, like Ms. Fell said, it was kind of exclusive. They only picked, you were invited. And then other people started getting, well, why are they invited?
Right.
And they started, like Grand Prairie, remember their first they had open enrollment at
And then they
their
had to,
school?
yep.
And nobody was really interested. Then they started asking for applications, and they were full because people thought, parents thought, well, it's exclusive, why isn't my kid going? If you said, we asked the students, and some of them said they were interested. Why don't we do it the other way around? That's how they did it the first time. They had a lot of people interested. The way they did it, the people who were starting the academy, they approached the teacher, and who do you recommend? And then they said they would send a note or something to the parents, to the child, saying, we're interested in you. Said, wait a minute, that's different. But not if you ask the kids who's interested, well, nobody's going to be interested.
Right.
And then they already have bad press on their health because it started real big, and teachers started leaving after, I think, the first year, wasn't it? Disappearing. Well, what happened to your teacher? Well, she's not coming in anymore. And what happened to the military, I can't remember his, remember the military man?
The director, the counselor, several
he had a
teachers,
presence.
project-based learning, all that fell to the wayside
They
after the
started
first year.
dropping like flies. So the kids saw that nobody was interested in doing it, so they started quitting. And then my daughter was one of a handful of kids who did the 4 years. And even, it was just, I can't remember, Mr. Chapman? He's the only one who did, Chipman. He's the only one who was left, and he was the one working with them on EMT. So kind of everybody gravitated to the EMT program, because that's the only thing that was left. And he was real good. He sent them out to the hospitals and for internships and stuff, but it was just one teacher. So they're going to have to, we're going to have to guarantee them that, yeah, this program, we're going to start it again, it's going to be totally different, because even though the people, they interviewed with parents, we had to do all these meetings, so people who were really interested, they stuck around. And after a little while, you can see who, no, it's been too much trouble in this and that, because the parents are the ones who are going to drive them to different, fire stations all over town to do the internships, to be on those ambulances. And the parents have to be involved, like they have to be 100% in there, because they're going to have to do a lot of the driving around and taking them places. So.
And Mr. Chipman, he's still there. He's still helping run the EMT, and he's definitely been a huge resource. And so I rely on him heavily, and definitely
he's
will.
going to need a lot of help, because he's the only one who stuck around.
Yes, and he's been a big part of the design team, so he's, like I said, he's been a huge resource. But part of our focus in our design teams. That's why we're only doing the 3 programs, is because we definitely want to add on to the program in the future, but we wanted to make sure that we had a solid foundation, because we definitely want it to be something that we can grow on in the future, but something that we can definitely guarantee our students that can be successful.
And rebuild that
Yes,
reputation if
definitely.
it's not there.
I have one.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm sorry. Mr. Rivas.
So for clarification purposes, you're revamping basically the way the new health science center is going to be run, right? So
Right.
incoming freshmen are going to start off at this new academy,
Right,
correct?
yes.
So just for clarification, because I know you're wondering about how this is going to work different from how it worked before. And so I think the goal is for all the incoming freshmen that are interested, they would start on the new health science program, and then they would kind of see it all the way through, and anybody that would follow them would kind of now be in this health science academy.
Yes.
The ones that are still kind of in the old path would have to graduate out on whatever path they're on right now.
Right, and we don't want to just drop them, because obviously they have some interest in health science, so we're trying to condense as much of a program as possible and however many years they have left. So we're combining kind of consolidated curriculum that have really good certification programs to try to get as many certifications for those kids as possible, just because it's not fair for them that they happen to come in before the new academy
Right.
started. But to clear up that perception, you know, that we put a sign in front of our academy that says, like, grand opening fall 2018, so the kids know too that it's going to be something new as far as the Health Science Academy.
Okay, and then speaking to getting the parents involved, I think one of the biggest things that we can do at the high school is get counselors involved with the kids,
Yeah.
so that they really get on the pathway of choice, and that they stick to, you know, the curriculum, I guess, because it is rigorous. But that's why you want the ones that are really dedicated and interested in the program to be in the program. So I think the counseling part of that, you know, becomes important. So do you work with are you going to be working with a specific counselor, or?
So of the counseling staff, they divide up the kids by alphabet, but there is one counselor who's kind of taken more of the CTE role, and Ms. Franco is our CTE coordinator. She's taken a huge lead in revamping how the CTE is organized, and so she's done a huge reorganization of that. And so between her and I and the counselors, we're kind of changing how all of that is happening, so that our kids are more knowledgeable about their pathways to begin with, so we can be more proactive about that.
Yes. And so we are going to offer something at some point where if somebody wants to actually be more than just an LVN or or a CNA or an EMT, you know, somebody wants to go be a doctor, are we going to give those basic courses right now where like Health Careers offers, or any of these other upper echelon schools?
Our goal is to be as big as we possibly can. As we were visiting some of these other schools, they offer like medical billing and coding and other specialties, but of course we would want to have something that's more of a direct pipeline to like for our students who want to be pre-med, more of those specialized courses. But again, we wanted to start with a very specific foundation so that we can start off with those small successes first.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments? So I have some. Okay, so I understand that you have a dedicated counselor for the high school, but we are recruiting 8th graders. So are we helping those counselors?
So in our,
And not just for health science, but all the academies that we're wanting in early college, health science, and then other CTE programs that we have.
so right now it's been very much a team effort. We meet weekly as kind of a choice program design
Who's
team.
we?
The middle school principals, the district administration.
Our design team. We have a district design team for choice schools, which include all of the choice schools, including the college, and then we have each campus has their own design team as well.
Okay.
And so Ms. DeLeon meets with the counselors a minimum of once a month, and they've been kind of up to speed, because not only middle school, we need to now have, because these are going to be fifth graders, we need our elementary counselors to be very well versed on the opportunities that are happening, at each of the programs.
So then my next question is, I know eighth graders get tested as far as what career pathway they're strong in. Am I correct? I mean, I think I had 2 eighth graders do that. And so does that take any play into the decision-making as accepting them into any of these pathways?
It's more like of a choice survey for them, to kind of give them more an idea of what the pathways are like.
And their own interests and their own strengths, their own.
An interest survey.
Yeah.
Are we using that as a resource?
We can, but again, it's more of just informing them of what we have to offer at the high school. Again, when we were going over the CTE pathways, they just really had no idea of what some of these things were, and they were just really blown away by how many options we had. And it was like just by the sheer number of options that we had, kind of made it more difficult for them because they were interested in so many things. So just being proactive and making them more informed, I think will go a long way.
Okay. Just as a comment, as a parent, I know that you're having a big showcase at the high school on Monday, but maybe breaking it up, and because I know we have a lot to offer at the high school, and making it on one particular day, maybe breaking it up and going towards the middle schools, having the high school students present, at the middle schools, and get parents there, because that's where they go mostly. And believe it or not, I don't know, when I had no one at the high school, it's intimidating to go to the high school because it's big. You don't know where anything's at. And I know y'all try to have some students, guide and send them where they need to go. But still, to have it more at their level at the middle schools would probably be a better interest. It's in their cafeteria, they're familiar, they're eighth graders, they've been there 3 years. Just another, suggestion or comment.
Great.
And I, may I
Mrs.
speak?
Flores?
I was going to, I wanted to address something you said earlier.
Ms. Franco?
Good evening, board. In regards to, I'm Chrissy Franco, I'm the new CT coordinator. In regards to your question about the counselors, next month I have a half-day training scheduled for them to just go over the different way that spring registration will run for the 8th graders. It will include, I have a CT consultant, and he will be running half of the training, just advising them over a lot of CTE stuff that they've not been educated on before. Even starting with the basics and the difference between a pathway and an endorsement. And so basically I've evaluated what they know, what they don't know up to this point. And so we're going to start there, because you're exactly right. They are our pioneers for educating our middle schoolers. And so we will be training them, we train them once a month, but that's our big one coming up in November. And we're even breaking it down to even how CTE is funded through enrollment. Just because it's a good thing to know, so they know how important it is that we have large numbers in CTE. In regards to the educating of the middle schoolers, of course we're starting with the 8th graders, just because, we're already in November, it's gone so fast. But the showcase is only step 1 in educating them as well as their parents. Starting in the spring, I'll also move down to the 6th and 7th graders, and from there to, of course, we want to go to elementary level. One of the things that I did find, like Mrs. Valzadua said, was that they just are not aware of the many opportunities. South San High School has more pathways than any other high school that I've seen in the area. 19 pathways is huge. Most programs average on a large number about 14. And they have them in all 3 of the endorsements that have to do with CTE. So that's pretty amazing. We have some really amazing staff. So we definitely want to start making the public aware of that. With the 8th graders, the reason that we decided to start with this, the showcase after the recruitment efforts was because I know that the district always does a showcase, a spring showcase with everything the high school has to offer. And so we wanted to just make this about CTE and what they can do. Coming from a district that's kind of similar in population to South San Antonio, one of the amazing things that we added those technical and vocational education programs was offering the opportunity of colleges in what everybody wants to do. And so we have to start making sure that they know there are other options based on what your goals are. And so we're starting there, but you're exactly right. We will be expanding to everyone, and then we will speak to parents either right before the holiday break or right after, because spring advising happens in February.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Mrs. Flores?
My question with the Health Science Academy at the high school, say I'm an athlete and I'm interested in pursuing, a career in this, does that limit me from participating in athletic activities as well as maybe I'm a band member and I want to be in band all 4 years? Does that limit me as well?
Do you want it or do you want it? It's the same that came up, and that's what our community meetings are going to be very important to share about. That came up, same thing with our early college academy, and as we let that option open for them if they wanted to participate in band, if they wanted to be in athletics, they could. But also letting them know that as you start taking more college courses, your options get less. And so maybe you can still be in athletics, but you won't have the athletic period because that's the only time they offer at Palo Alto College, your dual credit English for your senior year or your junior year. So that's where some flexibility with the, band and the others, has to happen. And maybe students just need to make some choices by their junior or senior year saying, what, do I really want to do 4 years of football or 4 years of volleyball, or do, my last year, what, that's a free college credit, I'll be finishing with my associate's degree, that's going to be their choice. It's better, in my opinion, it'd be their choice as opposed to our choice.
Okay. And that's important because that will be a choice and the parents and the students need to understand that. So it's important to communicate that. Okay.
And this helps them in college, because like my daughter, she did the whole medical thing, the 4 years. She's in UT now, Austin. First semester, she gets up, she wants to be a teacher. So, but I'm in medical, so she changed her major after all this time. So even when she was in high school, she had to drop stuff because she wanted, if you're in the medical, the science academy, you can't be taking on these electives. And she did one, and she was having lots of problems, but she decided to stick with the medicine, the health science, and she wasn't able to hang around with her friends. But this helps them make decisions, and they're growing up. You have to give this up if you want this. And she did that, and everything worked. She went to college. She was going to be a surgical nurse. Changed it on the first semester. Now she wants to be a teacher, so
Hire. So, anything else for Ms. Palladino?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to share, just to conclude, we just have a few more things that I wanted to share with the board and the community. So we have a consultant that we use with our system of great schools, and as we were sharing with them, the parent surveys we gave to parents of third graders through fifth graders in August, and then the online survey that we did, she had asked, well, have you asked the fifth grade students that are going into sixth grade? And we're like, no, we haven't. So she's like, let's get a survey out to them. So what we did is we gave a survey on October 25th, and go ahead and go to the next slide. 93% of our fifth grade students completed it, around 664 students. And we of course put the questions in student language, and they were taken to either computer labs or they had class sets of Chromebooks. further to complete. So the questions were, which of the following program choices would be your first choice for middle school? We did give a definition for each of these: health science, STEM, fine arts. So as you see in our first one, their first choice, 55.6% of students chose fine arts as their first choice, STEM as their second, health science as their third. We put none of the above because we had stated, that what if students weren't interested in any of them? We still wanted them to have a choice to, I'd rather just go to the traditional middle school. So if we go to the next slide. So then their second choice was health science, 36.6%, followed by STEM at 25.2%, followed by fine arts. And then none of the above as their second choice, and then their third choice, I believe, was STEM is 32.5%, then none of the above at 26.4%, and then health science, and then fine arts. Go ahead. So I wanted to share what our next steps are for our middle school academies. So we have scheduled 9 community parent meetings held across all elementary campuses. We are getting these done before December 22nd. We are wanting to have video taping of each of these meetings so we can keep these posted on the website. So in case parents aren't able to come, they can see the video. The Academy we're setting up Academy informational hotline and a dedicated web page for input and feedback. In addition, we'll have campus information meetings with 5th grade students prior to February 1st, as Ms. Franco stated that we already are going to start our spring registration in January and February, so we want to make sure the students are well informed on what choices they'd like and what applications, which of the choice academies they want to choose. We're looking at an application window of February 1st through February 16th. We're working with computer labs across the district at our parent centers to be available so parents, they can be assisted with the application process. These are the community parent input meetings that we have scheduled at each of our elementary campuses. And I'd like to share go back. So the format of these meetings are going to be informational and also small group. So we're looking at sharing a lot of what y'all shared. We're going to pull from this presentation itself when we share with the parents. Then we're going to be putting in small groups where members of each design team of each academy, and splitting the community, whoever comes, into small groups so they have rotations with one-on-one, so therefore it's not a big, y'all and us and receive. It is small groups where they can have direct questions to each of the design teams, and then they rotate. So all parents get access to all 3 of the design teams. Any question or input will be posted through a web portal where we'll either have it as they're communicating, we'll have it where it's posted at that meeting so everyone sees what each of the other groups are sharing, and then that again will be shared on our website. So we feel like that would be a good format. So therefore, when you get smaller groups like that to be more on one, it's just better listening, I think, and better feedback and more input from our parents and community. One thing we also are considering is having it going to open enrollment for incoming 6th grade students. And again, that would be something that we would consider and get feedback from our community and parents when that happens. So I briefly wanted to share the budget that we're looking, and again, it's proposed.
Before we go to the
Yes.
budget, since we covered some of the surveys and the parent meetings, board, I'm opening it up for discussion. I'd like Ms. Prado, because I think she had some questions in reference to that.
Yes.
So you have the floor.
On the slide number 20, I numbered them under the 5th graders. My question is, how many 5th graders took the survey? And I guess you're going to tell me all 5th graders took the survey. Do we know?
664.
Okay. And so the other question I have, was that done in the classroom, in a computer lab, during class instruction?
It was varied. Some took them to a computer lab, some did it in the classroom. It was varied from each, it depended on the principal.
And were they assisted? Did somebody help them? Because these are 5th graders. So,
And they're brilliant.
well, yeah, they're smart. They are.
No, as far as them, that we did, do you want to answer that, Ms. Bill?
The survey descriptions of the academy look quite different from what we shared with you all tonight. They were, and I can share that with you if you like, but it more gave descriptives of what careers those pathways would lead to. And it was kid-friendly language. Teachers may have read that out to them and assisted them with that. We're not quite sure across the district how that.
We gave it to the campus principals and they disseminated it
And
against
they
the
do.
fifth grade.
So I guess my concern is, was it written in such a way that it was at their level to understand what they were reading when they were taking the survey?
We did that to the best of our ability, yes.
Okay. And the other question I have was, on the slides of the percentages, I noticed that I was very pleased to see that our fifth graders, they know what they want. I mean, you've got STEM, fine arts, and health science. My concern is, what about those that said none of the above? Because you have the first choice, there was 9.7% that said none of the above. And then the second choice, there was 14.3%, none of the above. And the third choice, it was 26.4%. So what's going to happen to those that have not made a choice of any of these?
Then they are welcome to apply, continue to go to Dwight, or continue to go to Shepherd, or continue to go to Zamora. Because we're offering the school within a school model, so if they aren't interested in any three of these academies, they still have that option.
So they're just going to get their regular curriculum
What we're having
education
now.
without going for anything special and just...
If they're not interested in choice, yes.
Okay. Now, will they get, is it the last, because we're doing this at the fifth grade level, is there another opportunity? Because it could be maybe at sixth grade, they said, you know what, maybe I should have taken fine arts. It sounds like it's fine. Do they have that opportunity to change their mind and then get started with fine arts?
We would say yes, and that's something that we share with, that's another thing that we need parent and community feedback. At what point do they not, you know what I mean? Do we say, no, you need to make a decision by 8th grade, by 9th grade, by 10th, do you see what I mean? And that's where it's something I'd like to get feedback from parents and community regarding that. But yes, absolutely, if at 6th grade they have, that didn't seem, and oh, but wow, now that looked really cool, and they're building rockets, and yeah, I want to do that STEM,
Absolutely.
then
Their
they can
friends
apply.
are probably saying how much fun it is, and now they're saying, well, maybe I should have gotten it.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we give them that opportunity,
I agree.
to go in if it arises.
But along with that opportunity, just kind of like what was shared from Mrs. Yetta, ensuring that they know that the expectation, the high expectation that's going to be expected, that parents are committed as well, to hold those same things accountable.
Okay, let's see. The other things that I had was, I know that you're having community parent meetings, and those are going to be done. It says here that have been held, but they haven't been held yet. They're going to be.
Will be held across.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to correct that. Do we know, what I'd like to know is, it would be interesting to see how many actually attend, how many parents actually attend these meetings, because, the more parent involvement you get, the better for the student as well, because they're going to share the responsibility to make sure that if this is the pathway of the career that the child wants, they're going to push them to make sure it gets done. So I'm glad that they're being videotaped and we'll be able to see that as well. I hope that the board will be allowed to attend these meetings, because I'd like to see, how those things work. And will the parents, since the fifth graders did the survey, will the parents get to see their survey? Do they know what their fifth graders chose on their survey?
Well, my grandson,
sharing
the
that?
fifth grader, he came home and he was bragging that he was going to be in STEM and that he took a survey. And he understood it, so yeah, we know. One household.
And we did have on the survey a note for the students that they would have the opportunity to apply for those academies in the new year.
But I guess my question is, I know the students took the survey, but do the parents know that they're taking these surveys and that they've made these choices?
Well, we did Parents First at the beginning of the year in August. August 17th at open house is when 3rd through 5th grade parents had a more actually extensive survey that we shared with the board. Would you be, what is your likelihood of choosing a academy, a choice themed program? What is your, and I believe 70%, 74% of those parents said that they would be interested in an academy themed option. So we did have our parents, participate that at the beginning in August before we surveyed these students. As far as, and you're right, it is a survey. By the end, once we get out, we'll know once we get applications in, and that's when we'll really know. But I think it was important for us to, and again, like I said, getting the guidance of our consultant to know, what are the interests of our 5th grade students.
Exactly, and I'm glad you brought up the application. The application process, according to this, it's going to be through a computer lab that can be open at the campuses.
We'll have online and we'll have paper.
Okay, and it says also at the Parent Center?
Yes, we'd like to have it
Parent
available at
Center?
the Parent Center.
Okay, what about those parents that don't have computers, don't have access to a computer?
We'll have paper as well.
Or don't have the time to come because they work 2 jobs? What are we going to do to make sure those parents get an application?
We'll do the same thing like we did with our Early College Academy. We'll still have, opportunities where we'll still have evening meetings where if they need support in filling out the application. But they'll be paper and online. They'll be both.
I think that's important, that paper is available. Because
Oh, yes,
not everybody
absolutely.
has computers at home or have a way to make it to the schools or to the Parent Center. So yeah, I'm sure if an application is sent home in a paper hard copy, it probably more likely would be filled out and sent in than the computer of the website going to the parents. I think that's all I have on the 5th grade. I did want to make a comment on these meetings. I'm glad to see we're having so many meetings. I'm hoping that because it's important that the community and the parents get involved in this and that they're aware of what we're doing, that we're going to the school of choice. I think it's a good thing. I think the way we handled the repurpose committee, that we had all these meetings at the community level, because we had several, it wasn't just one. And because these are only 1 hour increment meetings, I'm hoping there will be more than just one, so that those parents that can't make these dates will be able to come back another time and be a part of the process as well.
Before we move on, I'd like to take a 5-minute break. And then we'll recess.
It's really unpredictable, right?
You two up there.
I do. Anything on food, you would put the application on the food can over there.
No, I like how he says, but he at least doesn't volunteer.
Well, this is what I found out, people, I'm gonna take care of it. I'm just gonna take care of it. If you're really mad, like, please make sure you're. But.
Like right now?
I have to.
I just figured out.
Sorry, I
I
didn't
like
see
the
the time.
extra stuff. Then we get to the World Series and all of a sudden he's got a shirt at the house.
Okay, so before we move into the proposed budget, are there any other comments or concerns, board members, in reference to this that was just presented?
I'd like to take this opportunity just to go over a couple things if I could. And mainly what it's gonna be about, and I know we haven't gone into the budget part of it, but I think that's just like technicalities. I think we've already kind of discussed all the major stuff. One of the components that I wanted to discuss as a board, I think, is community engagement. And so I think as a board, I'd like to kind of poll the board to see, and you tell me if I can do this or not, but I'm trying to get a sense of, as a board, what community engagement means to us as a board, so that we can then present to administration what we feel that community engagement means. And especially in a time like that, we're gonna take, drastic steps to open some academies, which I totally support. But I feel like there's just a couple of things that we need to get ironed out first. And one of them is a community engagement piece. So,
Council, can it be?
We could have a discussion as to what each board member feels, what community engagement means to them, but not necessarily a poll like a vote, because it's a presentation item. I like the word discussion, if that's all right.
so I'd like to have a discussion
There you go.
on community engagement and what that means to the other board members.
Okay.
I can kind of start off by, with what I feel like it means, and then we can kind of go from there, or
That's fine.
or we can start at the other end.
No, we can start with you, and then we'll go down.
Okay, good. So I think there's some key principles of community engagement, and I just feel like the conversation overall for community engagement should be grounded in parents' hopes and dreams for their children, right? And I think that always needs to include dialogue with the community. And that's a two-way conversation. And so what I'm stating right now is my opinion of community engagement. So I think at the end of the day, the relationship between the plan or the initiative and the parents' goals for their children should be real clear, right? So that's where that two-way dialogue comes in, where we kind of engage the community. We present our side of the story. We give them an opportunity to question. We answer the questions. They come back and ask another question. We come back and offer another answer. And then we kind of, as a collective whole, come up with a consensus, with a, understanding between the two people. And that's where I feel like the community engagement part, it gets real important, is where somebody feels like they've been engaged to the point where they have an understanding of what's going on, and they've been part of the process. So I think, any community engagement event should enable that dialogue between the community members and the district leaders. And it should be a mutual understanding that's reached. And I think that's the main thing. But when we kind of take a survey of a few questions that we ask parents. That's kind of superficial, I think. I think that's a good first step, but I think we need to build that two-way communication. So for the community to really understand, I think we should really dive into the question a little bit and kind of get that dialogue going, and I think we've been missing that. So how I guess parents should be given information about the board goals and how those goals relate to, their own children, and then how the research tells us, hey, okay, if you like that goal and this is what you think you want for your kid, this is how this academy could relate to that. And so that they understand, okay, I'm gonna put them in this academy, and there's a pathway after middle school to high school, and there's a pathway after high school to college. And that, engagement right there is giving the parents in the community a full understanding of what's going on and what we're wanting to do. And I think that's the premise. We went to SGS Summit, and I think it was Angie and myself, and then Belinda, Ms. De Leon, and Dr. Savadan. We all got the same training, but one of the underlying themes that we learned at SGS was that footwork, that initial community engagement, whether it's done right or wrong, is going to prove to be if the academies are successful or not. And I think the ones that did it are doing well right now, and the ones that didn't failed. And that was pretty much what the panel that was up there kind of discussed with us. So I can kind of go over a few, there's a couple of articles that I read, but one of them is Walking Together. And I'll just read an excerpt from that, and it kind of just goes over what good community engagement looks like. And so it says, imagine this: a community comes together to set a vision for its public schools. In local libraries, neighborhood associations, school cafeterias, and places of worship, families sit down together and share their hopes and dreams for their children. They think about what schools need to do better to equip students for college, career, entrepreneurship, and service to their communities. They imagine more college counselors and challenging courses that help students enter college prepared for success. Together, they talk about what they love about their schools and about what they worry about. They articulate their long-term vision for success, not just for their school or school system, but also for their young people. And that's just an excerpt from that article relating to community engagement. And so I feel like that's how important community engagement is. So I'll say that I feel like we need to really engage the community in a two-way dialogue to make these academies work. And I feel like that's where I stand. I think I covered a lot of points there, and I'll let somebody else speak now, but that's where I'm at.
Okay, Mrs. Flores?
Mine is very similar. I believe that community engagement is a two-way street where parents, families, students, and the school district are involved in the students' academic success. And in order to do that, we know at our level what our goals are. Staff knows at our level what our goals are, but the parents know. So we do need to put out there what the student outcome goals are and why we're doing the district initiatives that we're doing. So the more that we're out there having a two-way dialogue with the parents, because as Mr. Ibarra did say, it's what the parents dream for their kids, what they want out of, the school. I also read something, it's a case study, but it goes along with what the line of questioning Ms. Bravo was asking earlier. And it says that it's not enough to collect community input and leave it at that. We really need to share back with families to let them know how things ended up, kind of data that was collected, and what we used and didn't use from their feedback. I think that is very important. Building a feedback loop is important because, among other things, it prioritizes sharing back with the community, and it helps us make sure that we're implementing an engagement effort with fidelity. So that's how I feel community engagement should be.
Good. So now it's my turn. Was that it?
That was it.
Okay. So, what is my definition of a community engagement? Well, first of all, being a parent and an alumni of this district, I think that is something that is lacking. But what I feel a community engagement is where parents have access to campus principals, to teachers, to administration, and where they're able to share concerns, able to attend activities, able to be decision makers in curriculum, in choices that are offered for their kids, and but a collaboration, not necessarily just the decision makers, but that there's a collaboration of what's to come, what was done and what maybe, failed and why it's no longer being implemented. And, because it's ever changing, education is ever changing. It grows so quickly and, it either fits our district or it doesn't. Because it works somewhere else doesn't mean it's gonna work for us. Our community, the demographic, our poverty level, things like that. And so that's what I think community engagement is that there is a forum where that can happen, whether it be in a full-blown one meeting or two meetings or at the campus level or at the teacher level in their own classroom, based on the students, parents that she has for that particular classroom. And I'm speaking from an elementary point because we all know as parents and educators, when our kids get into middle schools, as parents, as for myself, we drop off the face. We don't interact as much with our middle schools unless there's discipline issues, then we're called in. But to be given a report that, oh, our child is doing good, or I see potential in her future, and this is kind of where she's gearing for, or this is what she's showing, I haven't seen that in the middle schools. Only when there's open house and we get to all meet our parents, meet our teachers in a very short amount of time, and depending on that teacher's schedule, sometimes they're not all there, but they're meeting all of their classes in that little period of time, and so there's really no interaction there, and so I don't think that's community engagement, so that's my definition, is where there is a two-way street, but it's not necessarily just in an open, big, one-meeting setting, that it's ongoing at all levels. That's my definition. Mrs. Getter?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank you for giving us the heads up that you were going to ask this question, so we could kind of think about what we were going to say. The first thing I did was Google community engagement, and it said the power of everyday citizens to make a difference. So, and it also said to involve those who are affected by a decision in the decision-making process. It promotes sustainable decisions by providing participants with the information they need to be involved in a meaningful way. And it communicates to participants how their input affects the decision. So I thought that was real good right there. I feel the district needs to work with communities to create an environment, to create an environment that is welcoming, supported, and that they feel they bring something to the table. We need, in order for the community to be more receptive, we need more events where the community and the students are the ones doing the communicating. Not just the board or not the administration. I think they'll feel more relaxed, more a part of the event. We need to give them a solid reason as to, for them to participate. Like with me, the Athens parents, they already have it in their mind that the district doesn't care about their opinion or their kids, making them feel isolated and that they don't matter. No goals, no mission statement, just give them a straight out reason why they're there and how this will benefit everybody.
give them a real opportunity to get involved. Not just help us check that off our governance list, that's our survey. So we need to put in a lot of work to get them used to, like you said, a new ways that we're starting new from here. We're not doing the same thing that South San has done in the past. It's a completely new thing, new procedures and everything. Like Ms. Bravo and I, we belong to the same neighborhood association. And they bombard us every month with questions and accusations and stuff like that. And we still keep going. But we're right there with them. We know, and they feel at ease to tell us everything. And they're not at ease here. So we do need to go, like you said, go to them, go to their schools. And I think that's one of the reasons we go, because we hear it straight from there, not from them. No filters, no nothing. So, and I think if we can do that, we might have a chance to get through to them. But we're gonna have to get in there, roll up our sleeves, and do a lot of work before we accomplish anything. That's it.
Ms. Bravo?
I think I pretty much have said how I feel about community engagement. Community engagement, it speaks for itself. Engage the community, that's what that says, and that's what we should be doing. And I just don't think we're doing it enough. It doesn't mean form committees of members that are made up of administrators, of employees, and of people that don't live in the district. Because only the community can represent itself. Nobody else can represent the community, they themselves. So, and I want to read on the systems of great schools, and it hit me right away. 2.3 says, help families understand and navigate their school program choices. It says help families. So you're talking about the community, and that's what we need to do, is help them understand. And like everybody else has said, we've got to educate the parents, and we've got to tell them, we don't just sit here and do nothing at the meetings. We're trying to make things better for your child, and this is what we're doing. These are goals, like Elda said. You know, these are our goals, and this is how it's going to help your child. But we need your help as well. And then show them stats, show them data, because they don't get any of that. It goes to the principals. You know, they have that, but it's never shared with the parents. So I think the more information we can give them, and they can be a part of, then I think they'll be that team that we need to succeed and to get these programs to succeed. They have to know that they're a part of the process and the decision making, because it's their tax dollars, you know, and they know that, and they'll tell you, you know, we pay taxes, we own these buildings. So they need to feel like they're a part of the decision making, and I just don't think we're doing enough to do that.
Mrs. Malo-Fraser?
Well, I think with all the community meetings that staff has scheduled, that gives me the idea that staff is aware that the board wants to get the community involved. And in saying that, with all the meetings that we've got scheduled, I think that it would be important that we go to the finish line and that we gather the information from all these committee meetings and see what we're going to do with that information. Because if we don't do that, then we haven't finished the whole process.
Okay. So, Mr. Ibarra, since you opened up the floor with that question, do you have a follow-up?
So I'll end with this. In Lone Star governance, pretty much every category, if you look at it under the master's focus, it says students, families, teachers, and community members were involved in the whatever. You know, so Lone Star governance tells you to be a master of all these things that they set forward. We have to involve a lot of people to get there. And that, I think, provides a longevity for a district. In other words, we're not trying to plan for next year, we're not trying to plan for 2 years down the road, we're trying to plan for 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road. And the way to do that is to get everybody involved and to really engage the community and get their feedback. So, I don't know, because I know this is just discussion, but you tell me, I think as a board, I think we need to come up with a community engagement statement, a stance, where we, as a board, stand on what we think that means, so that we can forward that to administration, and then they in turn understand what we're expecting. And when it comes to any issue regarding something that we think community engagement needs to be a part of. And that way they have a clear understanding, because right now, we have 7 different opinions maybe of what community engagement is, and then they have another 5 or 6. We all need to be on one page, and that way we all know what we're doing, board and administration, we can work together to move forward. And I think we just haven't done that piece yet, so.
Okay, so my question to you is, based on the information that was just presented, as far as the meetings and the way the meetings are going to be conducted, that's not sufficient of community engagement?
I think we're on the right track. I commend the administration for how they're going to push forward, and I think those meetings are really a good start. Does it involve everybody or give everybody an opportunity? I don't know. There's one meeting set up in some instances where I don't know that you capture the whole audience. And dialogue, the part that I said two-way communication is important, that's what I think we're missing. So we're having the meeting, and they're allowed to give a question, and we're going to post that on the website, the question and possibly the answer, but did we really engage that person at that time? Because, you know, if I have a question, I might ask it, it's going to lead to an answer that you might give me, and then I might have another question based off of that answer. And so that's a dialogue. So we haven't done that. I don't know that we're going to do that, but we haven't done that thus far.
We haven't done that maybe while you were on the board, but we have done that. In our strategic design process, sir, we did have done that. In fact, we have a core belief where it's stated based on what you're saying.
Well, I've been to those, and I see that part. I'm talking about other stuff. So this is an academy, and we're already kind of saying that we made a decision on which academies that we're going to institute, which focuses we're going to have at the middle schools, and I don't think we've had a two-way dialogue with the community.
Well, and I guess maybe that's where we, because our academies was as a result of our 2016 results when we had our strategic design in 2015. Then we came back to the community, aligning with our core belief, which our number one core belief is we believe in engagement of the school community for the success of our district. So being aligned to that, because that is a core value that we agreed upon as our number one core value, we asked the community downstairs in our auditorium, what are the results based of this? This strategy says this. What are the expected results? And what came from that was we need to do something with our middle schools. We like choice. We want a magnet. And then gave ourselves a timeline. When do you want to see it implemented? And this was a discussion that happened in 2016, and we have notes and presentations that
So,
that.
and
So
that's
therefore,
good.
we're holding ourselves accountable to what the community gave, kind of charged us with.
That was a population of the community.
Right.
But we're going to have these academies at 3 different areas of the community. So I feel like we need to go and engage 3 different areas of the community.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just a small population of people that already kind of made the decision for everybody. That's all I'm asking, is that we go engage more people and give the parents a full understanding of what these academies are going to be.
Oh, absolutely.
Because at some point, we're going to start asking them to write a check for those academies, right? I mean, everything that we do costs money.
Correct.
So at the time when it's time to say, okay, now I want you to fund the academies, we don't want that to be the time where they have a million questions that were unanswered.
Absolutely.
So that's the point I'm trying to make. It's
No,
just that two-way dialogue where we can really get the right answers out of the community and really give the community what they want.
May I interject there, if I could? I think I understand where you're coming from. But this is the reality. We're going to have all these meetings, and the likelihood that we'll have a full house is slim to none. The time that the campuses have a good attendance is when there's either Dwight has a band concert and it is packed. Rodrigo just had a PTO meeting, and no, it wasn't, it was a Title I presentation. But what they did was they had every grade level give a performance. So that means every parent from kinder to 5th grade was there to see their child perform. They couldn't even fit them in the cafeteria. You give them their child to show off, come in and have administration make a short presentation to them. That's where you're gonna capture the community, at those kinds of things. But not at these kinds of meetings. You're gonna just get a few.
And if I could interject to that, that is one part of the community engagement. That's just informing it. Administration just giving them something. We want to go further. And so not only, you know, letting them know what's going on, we also want them to have say. Because that's just telling them, you know,
There's gotta be a dialogue there.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so based on the meetings that I see, I don't see that dialogue, that follow-up meeting. So we're having a meeting on Thursday, November 9th, and from what I understand, it's the same meeting on November 16th, same meeting on November 8th. Is it a build-up? Is it, okay, this is what happened on November 9th, these are the questions we had, this is the feedback we received, this is a follow-up?
So I guess my question then I would take to the board is the expectation that you want, because then we would have to expect parents to be at every single meeting.
Not necessarily
And which is
every
fine,
single
but we
meeting.
need to know what
We need to have 2 to 3 meetings a week. You know, the first week, 2 to 3 meetings in the 3 areas. Then the next week is a follow-up to that week. Maybe sometimes go over what we did because you weren't here last week, but this is what we went.
Right.
I don't know if any of y'all attended the Ray Saldana town hall meeting last year right before elections. And so in that, and I don't know where it went, but the way he conducted his meetings were, it was community engagement. And so what he did was the first one, he divided, there's 7 of us. There's 7 districts in the South San community. He had 7 round tables, and wherever you lived, you went and sat at that table. He had a mediator in the beginning at each table, not with city council or with him. There was a third party, and they had questions. And guess what those questions were? How do you feel about your school, and how do you feel about your district? Very important questions that I feel should have gone to the district, because then that is an avenue that went to the community, and it was engagement, but it didn't go nowhere. Okay, it was there. So then he had another follow-up meeting based on the input and the dialogue that was taken. There was a follow-up meeting, and then he had themes. You know, based on the concerns, these were the top 4 concerns. So then he had another breakout session on those concerns, and he had rooms, and he said, okay, if this was your concern, go to that room, go to this room, go to this room. So then they had dialogue there. And then he had a third meeting.
Yes.
And so,
I believe there was one that he invited campus principals. Isn't that correct?
yes.
Balzo, didn't you attend that one?
And so that, I think, is what the board is looking, and please interject if I'm saying something out of
But if
line.
I can also point out, on how many community folks attended when the principals were invited?
Nobody.
So also know that even when we put, I think we all want the same thing. And in fact, I know we all want the same thing. We know that this will not be successful unless we have parents and everyone buying in. But I think we just also need to be careful of our, because as I shared with you, Ms. Ostigian, and you, Mr. Rivada, and Ms. Flores, we had pushback with our early college academy. We had a lot of pushback from community, from parents. I remember after board meetings, I would be cornered outside saying, our kids can't do it. You think that they can do college courses? They can't even, I would be cornered right out there. But we went forward with the early college academy. In fact, we didn't start our community meetings until, and correct me if I'm wrong, January? We had January, and it was a packed house at Dwight. It was a packed house at Shepherd. Maybe not so much at Shepherd, was halfway, because I think it was our first one. But then Dwight, we fed them, and we had a lot of feedback. Same with Kazan. and same with Zamora. And that's all it was 4. And we did have an open mic, it was a one-way where we did share information. But now looking down the road, our early college academy, I think is something that I know this district is very proud of. So I don't think we're on different sides when it comes to engaging community. I do know that, someone is always gonna get their feathers ruffled, no matter what it is. We could be, even with an early college academy that is great for kids and that is great for this community, we still had to push back. And I guess that's all I'm saying is that, and whatever y'all want, we're gonna do it. We are gonna kill ourselves to go out there and communicate, because we believe that these academies are best for kids. They need choice. Choice is good for parents, but choice is good for everyone. We did schedule where we are going to have student performances, as you shared, Ms. Barado. We did ask elementary schools to pick dates of, do you already have a PTA meeting scheduled? Do you already have something scheduled? So therefore, you are absolutely right. When you have student performances there, it gets more people there. But it isn't just enough to get people there. It is having that discussion and going back and forth. And it doesn't just end there either. Something I don't believe that I was going to share earlier, that I was going to share after the budget, but since we're on it now, is we're having a standing, I believe today, principals were sending me 3 to 5 parents, as Dr. Saavedra has a standing meeting with students, his team board, standing meeting with teachers, we're having a standing meeting with anywhere from 3 to 5 parents from every single school. Therefore, it doesn't go away, it's ongoing, and they have that access directly to the superintendent. So again, if this is not enough, we'll go back to the drawing board and see, and add additional. But this isn't over. We're not going to be done with communicating about these in December. We didn't want to wait. Like we waited in early college. We waited till January, and although everything went fine, in my opinion, it was rushed, and even though everything, went well, I don't want to rush this, and I want a lot of time for them to think, come back, because as a result of these, we might need to do another 9 in January before the application comes out. So this is not over, and we'll do, like I said, we work at the pleasure of the board. Whatever the board sees fit, if we need more than just once every week, then we'll respond to that.
Mrs. Flores?
In listening to all of this, then we all want the same thing. You're right, Ms. Castro. And I understand what Ms. Bravo is saying. It's getting the parents to come in because if you're saying, well, we're going to give you some information about academies, you're not going to have a whole bunch come in. Just a suggestion. I think the students, 5th grade students, should be part of it as well because it involves them. And if they hear the conversation between the parent and the staff, I think they're bright enough to know that it involves them. Perhaps giving them credit. If a child comes with a parent, the teacher can give them a credit and some type of a homework pass or something. You get 100 for whatever subject. That's an incentive to bring the parent and the child. And then because I think it's very important that when you explain this concept of academies to the parent and the child, that they understand what it means to have a school within a school, and meaning that there'll be traditional classes going on, but there'll also be, this academy over here. And you will also have the choice of going to another middle school, not necessarily the one where you reside in. So what is that going to mean? Right. Okay, and I think the child needs to hear that as well as the parent, so there can be this conversation at home, going forward, talking to dad and talking to everyone else, and also these are the things that I think I'm just suggesting that the child come with the parent, give them some kind of an incentive for attending this meeting, and go from there and see how many parents do show up, and hopefully there'll be a second round, like you say, but I think it's important that they understand the concept right away. So what is it going to mean?
So going back to my initial request on why I even brought this up, let me give you an example of what I think, and this is not something that we need to adopt today or anything. I'm going to give you an example of what possibly I was talking about. So community engagement is successful if There's broad acceptance of a proposed plan. So that means a lot of people accept it, right? Not just a few. District leaders, educators, parents, and community members can articulate the relationship between the plan, the board's outcome goals, the parents' life goals for their children, and the superintendent has reported to the community the specific elements of the plan and execution strategy that were designed to address parent and community priorities and concerns. So that could be what a board statement looks like that we could give to the administration and say, this is what community engagement looks like. And that's kind of an example of what I was talking about. Something that we could give administration that sets a standard and they understand what that standard is and then they can carry it out for us. But I don't know if that's something that we have to come back at another workshop or...
Yes, we can't adopt anything under this item, but yeah, this is a good start to this discussion.
Okay, so is there any other comments or feedback on what Mr. Ybarra just said? So, okay, so let's bring it back to where we are with this, okay? So, Mrs. Castro, and board members, correct me if I'm wrong. So these first round of meetings, is there already in the plan that there's a second round of meetings?
There's going to have to be in the second semester. I mean, because for applications, for all that, there's going to be, this is just what we're having up to December 22nd.
Okay,
But
so application, so my question is, the slides that we just viewed, there were pre-AP type classes, correct? And so that's what we're asking our parents as to which of these classes are you wanting to see?
Well, and that, and how do they, because if we're going to have high expectations for kids, specifically for the health science, the parents have to be on board for that, and they need to understand this is going to be tough on your student. It means you're going to have to support them with late night studying or tutoring or
I think that
and just knowing that they, when they sign up for whichever academy, understanding their commitment to it.
Okay, and see, and I think that needs to be inputted or given to the parents before applications. It's like, okay, applications are going out tomorrow, this is the expectation. They need to have time first to process what we're giving them and the feedback that they're giving us. We need time to process that as well. And then go back and say, okay, based on the information we heard you. You know, I mean, because here's, and I understand what you said, that most of our community, or you got a lot of pushback, negative pushback for the early college, okay? And now it's success, where we have even teachers wanting to be part of that curriculum. But it should have been a success from the very beginning. And what I mean by that is we should have been at our community engagement outlets and informing our parents that this is the best. I mean, as a parent, we've gone through things. We know what our teenage kids are going through because we were once teenagers. And if we're communicating with them that what they're going through is normal, you know, everyone goes through this is not just an isolated thing, and we give them goals and we highlight what the future can bring to them, they have a better outcome. And so that needs to be applied as well when we go out and present a new, I mean, this is a life-changing way of the way the district is doing anything. And so we need to have, and let them know that there is a second round of meetings way before application.
Right, but, and again, February is our first application, we still have a month in January, but I wanted to see what and again, if we need to increase these, we can increase these before December, but I wanted to garner when we got the dialogue, because we might have to change what we're presenting from November 9th to November 16th based on the questions that came up. We even changed it based on our site visits. We didn't think about restorative discipline as being an option until we went and started talking with other school districts, and that's something we need to put in our budget for. So I believe like this is going to be very organic and us to hear back. And And I just want to make sure that, I guess what's most important too is, having that two-way dialogue, but then having a result of, okay, based on the feedback, this is the course sequence we're proposing, and this is why. That's what the purpose of these 9 meetings were.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example. You take that input and you make adjustments based on the feedback you got.
Correct.
So that's perfect. I mean, I'm not saying we're not on the same page. I just don't know that without a board vision of what we want, that administration is going to exactly know what to do in any given situation. And so if you had that, then you know.
Okay, so as a parent, here's my question. So I need to attend all of the meetings because it's going to be ever changing?
In that area?
It might, depending on how we get
So
from
then
the.
my question is, how is it going to be presented?
Well, and that's why we're videotaping it, so therefore, if you did miss that meeting, you know what I mean, you at least have an opportunity to see what was presented, seeing what's shared, you see up above of everybody's comments, because even within the meeting, when we've had, when I've been part of dialogues like this, in previous experiences, it means a lot where everyone sees, oh, this is what they're saying, this is what they're saying, and they can see it with, up, and I know it means something when you see it up on the board. It's almost like parents are like, you know what, there's my comment, I see it up there, okay, somebody heard me. Because at the end of our first one, it may come out where we may need to adjust our agenda for the second one. But that being said, I'm going to welcome anybody. I mean, I would hate to think that we'd have to put parents out where they have to be 9 times, by December. But hopefully, as we go through and how these are as we have these two-way dialogue conversations, as a result, we could come back in January. Now, we haven't, this is just me thinking right now, it's not just that or anybody, but as a result of these, we can have, okay, at Shepherd, this is based on what we gathered here, this is a summary and share out at Shepherd. This is a summary of what we received and share out at Dwight. This is a summary of what we received and share out at Zamora, based on what we got from these meetings as well. So, but again, like I said, I haven't discussed with staff. This was, just from our dialogue here. And I don't know if that's something that would, please the board or not, but we're not, I do say with 100% certainty, December 18th will not be the last time we engage the parents and community regarding academies.
So, what does our consultant say about those meetings?
She was very pleased. She was the one that suggested us to survey the 5th grade students, so we did. And then she asked when are our next steps. I shared this with her. When did we speak with her, Lorraine? Monday? And shared this with her. We also shared the cost. She has shared all the budget. So our proposed budgets that we're predicting. She's been giving us feedback on that if we missed something, etc. And
so did Alyssa think that these were enough? Or did she think follow-up meetings were going to be needed? Or has she given you structure on these?
Oh, yeah, and this is not, we're not, right, because we still have the school performance framework. We haven't even, this is academies, and then we have to come back with the school performance framework of, and we haven't, and we were hoping to attach some of that to here. We may not be able to during the dialogue of the board, but I was hoping to, since we are going to be out at schools, to start asking the same questions to align to that 4th bucket for accountability. But if that needs to be a separate, we can do that separately, because in addition to this, for our performance framework, we have to go out to the community and get their input on what a great school is. How do you know, besides of just star scores, is it
I think that could absolutely be incorporated, because I think that what a great school means could possibly mean an academy, a school, and a school. Right? So, I mean, that's where we're going.
Yes.
But,
and I had originally planned that into that, but I didn't, I just want to make sure that we had originally planned that into these meetings, but I also don't want to take away from dialogue, et cetera, that needs to happen here too, so.
Well, and I'm just curious on what she thought about how the structure of these meetings should be at these places.
And that's what I shared with you, that we first start with information and then going into small groups and then rotating so they each get, we hear feedback from each of the themes, and they hear from each of the themes. So even if they say, you know what, I really want STEM, but you know what, now after I heard health science, well, maybe I'll do health science, so therefore they are exposed to each.
And then you would have to come back with answers, or did she suggest just posting those answers on the website was enough?
What do you mean by coming back with answers?
Well, the follow-up, for of all those roundtable discussions are gonna produce questions.
We either have roundtable at the end, depending on what comes up, to be honest with you, sir, if we can come together at the end of that meeting and have some, closure, or if it needs to come back where we, add another, where we have to have, okay, everyone from the Shepherd feeder, we need to meet at Shepherd. It was kind of open. It's really going to depend on what the feedback we get when we begin.
May I interject here? Is there a reason why you put 6 to 7 meetings? Because at the meetings that we had, the strategic light meetings, you were cutting them off at exactly an hour, and parents don't appreciate that because they have more questions. Even when the mic is turned off, they were approaching administrators and the principals and asking them more questions because they feel like, well, what if I'm late and I can't get there till 6:15? This meeting's going to end at 7. Why am I going to go? Maybe just a 6 o'clock meeting, and then you end it when you
When
finish.
it's ended.
Exactly.
I'll discuss with the superintendent.
Because they have schedules, and they have to go home from work, get the kids fed, and then go to the meeting. And by that time, it's probably 6:15, 6:30, and they'll say, well, it's too late, I can't, I lose a lot of whatever's being presented.
Because it is.
So there's no place cut off. You cut it off when you're finished, and then that's it. Whether it's 7, 7:30, then you cut it off. Because they're being felt like that they're not giving us enough time to ask questions. So, it's just a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I also like the part where you said, based on the information received and closing out, but then going to the middle school campuses and have, because it's time, they got a feel of all three, and then now they're going back with their child, depending if they brought their child with them or not, because now they have to go back and discuss it with their child to see what their interest was, what did they pick, what were they interested in, and then do some research with them as to what that may entail for their lives. Because, I can tell you right now, my experience, my daughter is in the pathway for culinary arts. And as adults, when I tell individuals that my daughter's doing that, what do you think the first response is that they get, or I get? Oh, so your child must love to cook at home. My child has never helped me cook at home. And so I'm like, okay, I'll support you in that pathway, because I know how to cook and I love to cook, and so does my husband, but we were astonished.
Right.
But we're supporting her, and hopefully she does very well in the 4 years that she's doing that pathway. But that's now we have to go home and discuss it with our children and see what they chose and see if that's even a fit for them, because we know our children. So then having a follow-up meeting at the particular campuses where it's going to be held, we may have more questions based on, okay, my child's going to go this pathway, what does that really look like for her or him? And so I think having that second round way before application time.
Yes, ma'am.
I think there should be
And
that
that's
third round.
Right, and like I said, the application time was not a hard date at all. It was just something that we said, and that is very flexible, so.
So what did you decide on the surveys, the fifth graders? Were you going to give that to the parents, or have the parents received them yet?
I don't believe the parents have received them, but we can share them.
I think that would be a good idea. That would open a lot of parents' eyes, like what? Like Angie said, I didn't know if she would be interested, and that's going to happen to a lot of
Yes, ma'am, you're absolutely right.
And at least they have some idea as to where your child is going.
Absolutely.
Before all these meetings.
Okay. Are there any other comments, concerns? We have another segment, the proposed budget.
So, each one, we just wanted to share briefly, and these are very broad, very, like I said, it's just proposed of what it would be. This would not entail any construction, schools, anything. It is just simply payroll, professional development, supplies, and miscellaneous operating costs. So what you see is the middle school STEM Academy and what the proposed budget is. And so first year would be more because we're putting, the supplies would be heavy. We're looking at having a STEM lab. Then, as you notice, some of those costs end up decreasing by year 3. Year 3 would be the the yearly cost then to keep this academy open. The next slide.
Oh, the next slide.
With our health science, our middle school health science, again, as you see, payroll, professional development, contracted services, supplies, and miscellaneous operating costs, and how it slowly increases each year, by year 3 being around $443,168. And then fine arts, again, by year 3, it's $454,027. And health school science, high school science academy, going up to $833,190. So basically, a comprehensive proposed cost for academies. Now, this is not including the early college, is not included in this. But, so year 1 would be $2 million, year 2 would be about $1.8 million. Then after everything implemented, we'd be looking at a recurring cost of $2.1 million. To keep them going.
And so now board feedback, I know we've been talking all along these segments. Are there any other comments or concerns based on this new information we received? No? Okay. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn?
Do I hear a second? Okay, a motion has been made by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. The time is 9:02 p.m.